Welcome to Retro Groove. Enjoy your voyage.
Howdy and welcome to Retro Groove. I'm Adam.
And I'm Liam.
And this is a podcast where we talk about music that stands the test of time, the albums and artists that have shaped and reshaped the sonic landscape, as well as covering new music from those artists. Happy episode 25.
Yeah.
It's a big milestone. Not taking it lightly. And this week we are going to talk about some of our favorite 25 million selling albums.
Yeah, other milestones, right? Like it's our milestone. Let's look at some milestones that are similar for other artists.
Yeah, it's because we'll eventually get to 25 million episodes, I think.
Yeah, and 25 million listeners.
Yeah. There you go. Exactly right. But we're gonna have fun with it. But just want to take a quick moment to thank all of you listeners for sticking with us for 25 episodes. It's been about a year at this point. And we don't take it lightly. We appreciate all of you and hope that you can stick with us through 25 more and then hopefully, on from there.
Yeah.
But I know I've had a lot of fun. We've gone through some changes. There's probably going to be more changes coming up ahead. Growing things change and changing things grow, or however they say it. It's just part of the creative process, and we're gonna reevaluate some things over the summer, and we'll see what happens.
Cool.
But Liam, we've had a lot of stuff going on here. How have you been doing, and what's going on with you recently?
I'm pretty good. Summer's kind of officially kicked off now, right? So
yeah.
Out and about, got the speakers playing outside, got some yacht rock cranking. That nice sweet 70s soft rock of Bread and Starbuck and Ambrosia,
tailor-made for summertime.
Oh man, it feels so good. I mean, like I've tried to put it on when it's cold outside and it's still fine, but it's not the same. I'm not like cooking to that music too much. I need it cold drink in my hand, pool, beach, whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So it feels good to bust those songs out. How about you?
For sure. So obviously with the news and everything, it's been a little bit crazy with the Uvalde incident, and we've been. It just hits a little bit closer, unfortunately, to home. I mean, number one, literally with it happening a little bit less than 3 hours away from me. Yeah, it's kind of right down the highway. And just the fact that, we were taking our fifth grader out to lunch after her elementary school graduation it was happening. You know what I mean? Oh. So that's just... that's unfortunately been on the forefront of our minds for the past week, and it's been a little rough. But we're making do and trying to see if there's anything that we can do to help if possible. But just kind of spending a lot of time with the kids, and we talked to the oldest about what happened, and that was a tough conversation. But other than that, honestly, like we've just been spending a lot of family time, doing as much with the kids as possible. So it's almost to the point that I feel a little bit unprepared for this episode. Usually I do a lot more prep work. But there's just been so much more time spent together and less time on the phone and playing video games, and more time just, doing the random mundane stuff together and making the best of every day. So hopefully we can all move forward and do that a little bit more. And hopefully some good comes out of all of this some way, somehow. And that's the best that we can hope for. But yeah, we don't need to dwell on that too much. Thankfully, we have other pursuits and things that we want to focus on. Rightly so. So I've got some kind of creative projects brewing, and hopefully can reveal those kind of soon.
Cool, man.
And haven't done a lot of music listening. Mainly because early last week, before school let out, and then all the news broke out and everything, my car is now in the body shop. I've been pushing off some repair work on some heavy hail damage that happened from a big storm in April of last year. Oof. And it's just, first of all, there were so many other people that had damage to their vehicles. It took months to just even get like an appointment. Right. And then at that point, the kids were in school. So it was like, how am I going to be without my car for 3 or 4 weeks with the kids in? That's not going to work.
I mean, I don't know how you do it. Yeah, it's impossible.
I guess that's how they end up selling you on the rental reimbursement coverage, which we of course didn't have, because that would have solved the problem, right? Mm-hmm. So I could be an insurance salesman now with all the research I've done and the things that I learned, unfortunately. Yeah. But surprisingly, it kind of surprised me how little music I've been listening to without having the car.
Right.
I've just been doing what I've been able to do, obviously ordering a lot more, curbsides or like deliveries to the house for groceries and food and things like that. But yeah, without the kind of constant driving around and just spending more time inside and like working in the backyard and stuff like that, not nearly as much music. It's like it really made me think about, man, like the car is one of my major music machines. I know we love our vinyl records and everything, but I'm in my car a heck of a lot more than sitting in front of my turntable and speakers.
Exactly.
Which I love doing, but it's like it's harder to find the time to do that these days. Right. So yeah, I have been listening to some stuff. Like I mentioned last week, I was listening to the Blonde Redhead album from I believe it was 99 or 2000. And then I got back into the album that came out after that, Misery is a Butterfly. And I was just like, man, they just took what they did on the prior album and just doubled down on it. And after that, they went like really dream pop with it, which isn't bad. It's just kind of different for them. But that Misery is a Butterfly album, I feel like it's one of those just perfect early 2000s just landmark albums for me. And so I've been listening to that quite a bit. And then the other thing, this was brought on by Dan mentioning it in the Discord.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Dan is a huge Super Furry Animals fan. And I didn't so much get into them, but somehow I ended up getting into their one album that they put out that is entirely in Welsh. And yeah, so they're a Welsh band.
Okay.
But their albums primarily are in English. I don't know the backstory behind it. It was just maybe something they just had decided they wanted to do. Sure. But they put out an album entirely in Welsh, which is a relatively unusual language. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know how to pronounce it. The album is titled, I guess it's one word, but it's spelled MWNG. That's the name of the album. And it just, to me, has always been much more like haunting and memorable than kind of their other stuff, which is more kind of just straightforward indie rock pop. to me. They've always been kind of a little bit on the weird, quirky side of things, which is great. That's fine. But this album just seems to have a lot more introspective and serious moments and a more melancholy tone to it. So that one really hit me. It was also right at the perfect time too, right around that same early 2000s time. So I got back into that thanks to Dan reminding me of it. But that's really it. Haven't been able to get to the record shop without a vehicle, so I haven't made any purchases.
You're not getting any curbside vinyl?
No, I have not done that. And
I don't know if that's a thing.
I mean, I'm sure you could order, there's apps where you can order pretty much anything, but
that's true.
The premium on that vinyl is expensive enough as it is. So, you order a burger that should cost you 10 or 15 bucks and you end up with a $40 bill anyway. So a $40 vinyl record might end up costing me 80 bucks. So I'll wait until I can go and look it up in person.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, so my stuff this week is interesting because it's not, I listened to a bunch of stuff, but a lot of it's inspired by like music adjacent stuff. So, I will periodically, I'm not a big fashion shoe clothing guy really, but I'll periodically check the Vans store just to see what cool stuff they have popping up.
Oh, gotcha.
And I haven't had slip-ons in forever. I've been a high tops guy, but they did a partnership that's going on right now with Daniel Johnston, or a foundation that was created in his name,
with his artwork?
honor. Yeah. And it's all his artwork. It's like a mental health organization that they partnered with that is like from his estate or whatever.
Right.
And so it features all of his artwork, and the slip-ons were just nasty, dude. They were so cool. And again, I was like kind of in the market for some slip-ons, and I love Daniel. Like, I'm not hyper well versed in all of his stuff, but know it really well and appreciate it really well, and actually got to like work and meet with the guy a little bit before he passed back in the day. And so it just hit me right. It's for a good cause, like everything aligned. But again, like buying these shoes, I drove to the store to pick them up, and I listened to him, and I was like, man,
that's cool.
So crazy, like such a unique songwriter, like very like not concerned with rhyming stuff. It was really from the heart. It was just like what he was feeling, and the people describe it as childlike and just whimsical in some ways. It is really just this like bleeding heart of whatever was going on inside that guy. And wrote gorgeous melodies, like simple, gorgeous melodies to go along with these thoughts that he had. So I feel like I have with him sometimes the same thing I used to have and still sometimes have with Conor Oberst, where it's like there's some technical things that I have a harder time gelling with sometimes, like the recording quality or the pitch or whatever. But if you can kind of like you set aside like your technical brain and just kind of meld with what's going on there, it's really something special.
I've even had that with like Bob Dylan. Like earlier on in my life, same. I would be like, "Oh my God, how can you listen to this?"
Yeah,
and it took time to really just get past that aspect of it. And then it's like, oh, okay. I kind of get it now. I got it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a point of entry where it's like, okay, if you can get past this, the on pitch singing might not be there.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case may be.
Cassette recording. Yeah.
And but it opens up, if you can get past it, it opens up kind of this garden of amazing emotive work. So I totally know what you're talking about, and I have to. I'm by law required to know a bunch about Daniel Johnston as an Austinite. So I mean, his artwork is plastered on our buildings. So So did you get what was the what were the pair of shoes that you ended up getting?
It's like this. series. It's not checkerboarded. But it looks like it looks like a bunch of posters basically that are all kind of lined up in rectangles. So it's just like this
okay.
spread of stuff on the slip-on shoes. They're
okay,
really
so
cool.
it's a bunch of pieces of his artwork,
exactly,
kind of laid out. Okay,
and
that's
like
really
the
neat.
Inside of the sole is also like a different piece of artwork, and it's really, really cool. It's like a muted kind of blue and white offset
really neat
thing, but there's a bunch of stuff. They got like shirts and pants and sweatshirts, all of his stuff. And again, all benefiting a mental health foundation. And
yeah, that's awesome.
It's a cool line, not sponsored by Vans, but they put out good stuff and they do cool partnerships, really creative stuff. And and I dig it.
Really neat.
The other thing is I've been reading, I'm nearly done with it. I've been like really in a reading space lately for whatever reason. Like that's kind of calming me and it's scratching that itch more than games or whatever. And so John Darnielle wrote a third book that I've been reading, and again it's just like he's gotten so great. He's the lead singer of the Mountain Goats. He's gotten so great at honing that side of his storytelling and craft, where each book has gotten better. The first book was a little weird, a little off, like hard to follow. Second book was pretty solid, and this one's just fantastic. It's
so like this is fiction novels we're talking about.
All fiction. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
He's been writing straight fiction.
Really interesting. Okay.
And it's like a twisted kind of crime horror story, but not just over the plate. It's super insightful. The characters are jumping off the page. And again, it just reminded me of how great of a storyteller he is in his music. And so like I'm reading this and then I'm throwing his music on when I'm walking around or in the car, because I'm just in his, like, I'm kind of letting him steer me a little bit.
That's really interesting. So have you noticed any, like, between reading his fiction work and listening to his lyrics, are you noticing any like similarities in, I don't know, language or like imagery, things like that? Does it connect in any way?
Yeah, he just paints pictures really well. He can go tangential, but it ties in so nicely that it never takes you too long, but it takes you just long enough. Like he'll start a chapter talking about something that is wholly unrelated to what you were just reading the chapter before, and then by the third paragraph how it's
it brings it back in. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. And his songs can often do that. Like he'll be singing about something and then he'll paint this other scene and then it'll kind of tie in.
Really cool.
So he's very good at kind of transporting you and painting pictures for you. And then last thing is I went to go see Haim, and they played MSG. I don't think I talked about this. It was like right around the time we did the last episode. I don't think we talked about this, but you
put a picture up in the Discord.
I did. Yeah. It was MSG. It's a big thing. They sold it out.
Nice.
And man, just the thing I wanted to say, like, first of all, they've got that like 80s kind of heart vibe, but also some Fleetwood Mac, but also like current pop, like sensibility, all blended into one. Their stage presence is bananas.
Yeah, they're like great on stage.
So good, man. And like play their instruments so well. Great songwriters, singers, great performers, so engaging, fun little, not even like skit things necessarily, but like just very playful, well crafted.
Just being siblings on stage.
Yeah. It was fun. And even like the corny, or potentially corny, I should say, crowd work of like, hey, this side needs to be louder than that side or something, where usually I roll my eyes. It was done in a way where it was super fun. It was like, maybe I was able to just allow myself to have that fun. So that could be more of a me thing.
It really depends. Like sometimes it just feels and seems so forced You know what I mean? And so there's a very specific talent of, no matter what the medium is, of reading the room. And you got to have to know, like, if you do it at every single show, it's going to bomb at some point. So you can't, you have to be able to, okay, is this crowd going to go with this? Or is this going to fall flat? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and you've been to those shows where it falls flat, and it just it makes everybody feel awkward.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I remember seeing them back ages ago around South by Southwest in Austin, and they still had great stage presence. It was just this like scrappier fun time, like, hey, we're a ragtag bunch of sisters and we're gonna rock your faces off in a small club thing. And to see them scale that in a way
awesome.
where they're still engaged, but also the presentation is befitting of a bigger arena.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, you see people and you're like, you're stars. You just, you figured it out. You just have some kind of muscle in you that can do this job of being a rock star. Yeah.
Yep. They got it for sure.
And so it made me go back. Like, I knew a bunch of the songs, but it was definitely a concert that I went into where I knew 6 or 7 songs really well. I recognized a few others by passing listen on their albums. And then there were a bunch where I'm like, yeah, I couldn't tell you what album this was on. I'm not sure. But I like those shows, especially right now. I don't like there's been times when I want to go and I'm like, I need to hear the songs. Like, I go in there and I've got a hit list and I'm like, I got to hear this. I kind of like going in and not having, I'm kind of like going in and not having any expectations. I'm going to go see Phoebe Bridgers in a couple weeks, and I'm concerned that I'm going to walk in with expectations. I'm trying to not.
Yeah, that's hard.
I want to go in and just cold have a beautiful experience. And I'm afraid I'm going to sit there and be like, I need to hear Funeral or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a great show no matter what. So that's cool.
Awesome. A little bit of news.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah. So you were talking about Stranger Things before we started recording today.
Yeah. So we, especially not having a vehicle and wanting to just, kind of spend more time together. Haven't started Obi-Wan yet, but we are almost done with the first, drop of the Stranger Things season 4. And thanks to the, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a kind of an entire plot point around this song, Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush, that has now 37 years later hit number 1. She has a number 1 single thanks to Stranger Things.
So crazy, dude. I mean, we talk about the impact that TikTok has, but like media can just really, I remember this with American Idol too. Like, if someone would perform a cover on American Idol and it would just rock it would go number 1. But I don't think they ever did a Kate Bush song, like,
not that not that I followed it too closely, but I don't think that would have been, something that they would do on a show that big. But initially, in 1985, it hit number 3 on the UK charts and it made the Billboard Top 40, but never hit number 1 until this week. So congrats to Kate Bush. Certainly well deserved. One of the more under, I shouldn't say underrated, but more underappreciated artists of the 80s. And
I feel like she's someone that everybody cites and points to and says like she is the
very
cornerstone
influential
of so much. But like never, like you said, never had that number 1, never maybe had that massive public moment.
I mean, that was her biggest, really, that was probably her biggest hit and her biggest claim to fame, so to speak. But nice for her to get the recognition. It is really, really well implemented in the show. I'll just say that. Hopefully going to finish it tonight, but you have to watch season 3 first, man.
Yeah, I haven't done that. I dropped off after they killed what's his face? Sean Astin He's a Goonie. Like, you kill a Goonie, it's going to blow back on me. Sorry, that's a spoiler too. Shoot, if somebody didn't watch the second season. Yeah.
It's been long enough.
I guess so, yeah.
For that one.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to do it. It's just not... it's a show that I don't think I'm getting my wife back on board with. Like, it got too intense for her, so it's got to be a me show. I did just finish Ozark, which also, by the way, had some killer hip hop in it. And did you watch Ozark at all?
I started like the first couple of episodes, and then like something else happened, and it's like I was gonna have to go back and restart it. So it's like on my long list of things to eventually go back to.
So that was my situation too, and it's definitely one of those things where when they announced the end, I was like, okay, now I can.
Now you can do it. Yeah,
now I'll go back. And so I watched it all. Very good. Little intense at times, a little too Breaking Bad for me, and that's not my scene. But there were enough people to cheer for in it where it carried me through. But there's a lot of moments, especially when some of the characters is this family. One of the families like within it that's young and they're really into hip hop. There's a lot of like Nas and Wu-Tang and stuff.
Nice.
That they're just listening to as they're driving around. It's scored really cool. The music direction is really neat. But dude, there's this moment I freaked out, and it was like 12 o'clock at night, and I yipped in my living room, and I sure I woke up the family. One of the characters is like leaving this late night restaurant, and she's like working through this tough decision that she's about to make. And she's listening to Nas and bumps into Killer Mike. And he is sitting there with some people, and she like walks by him and then like realizes who it is. And she backs up and goes up, and she's just like, man, I just had to tell you, like, she fans out.
Oh my God.
As the character on Killer Mike playing himself. And he's like really gracious about it. And he's like, what are you listening to right now? And he takes her earbud. He does the thing that we all did with the CD wallets or whatever. It was just like listening. And then they start talking about Nas for like a minute or two about like writing Illmatic or whatever. And I'm like, this is such a weird non sequitur in this moment, but it also is this like, I want to know who did the music direction for this and who thought, let's get Killer Mike in here. Let's talk about some classic hip hop and how that correlates to like people striving to come up, because that's part of what the show is all about, is like that drive to make money and get successful, to get to that next level and what you'll do to get there. And I'm like, man, what a crazy side story or like little moment to just loop in, but it hit, you know. And it was just cool
love stuff like Mike. That. Of course, as a music fan, I love seeing those tangents of, you know, them talking about little or not necessarily so little, but just trivia, music, history and things like that. It just, I don't know. It's so immersive for me, because that's that's what I do. Like when when I make a connection with somebody about something musically, we're going to go down that rabbit hole right here and now. You know what I mean? So
exactly,
I like that a lot.
It was such a cool moment. So I think I'll do Stranger Things. That's just got to be like a me time show, and I'm probably going to have to go back and revisit it from the start again, but. Have they said when it's ending, or is it still like open ended? Because these kids are getting old, man.
Yes. So I do know that. So they're doing it a little bit differently this time. They dropped like the first half of season 4, and then the second half of season 4 drops later this summer. I believe July, if I'm not mistaken. And then they did announce that it's going to end at season 5.
Okay.
So like after this, there's one more season. Cause it's interesting because you do kind of get to watch these kids grow up. And it's never, I mean, being a preteen and a teenager is just awkward by its very nature. Right. So there's that aspect of it, but you know, it's never awkward in the sense of like the story, because, you know, you're seeing them in middle school, you're seeing them go through the awkwardness of entering high school and what those school relationships look like. And they kind of just weave it into the story, which is great. But yeah, eventually, you know, what are we going to do? Follow them to college? That starts to get a little bit like, okay, it starts to get like Saved by the Bell, the college years. And it's just like, come on, like what, what are we doing here really? So yeah, all great things must come to an end. And honestly, like I mentioned before we started recording, that's a show that hit so consistently for me that I've just kept like waiting for it to drop off in quality or like jump the shark in one way or the other. And it just hasn't. It's been so consistent. So I'm really, really glad they're ending it because I wanted to end on a high note and like not turn into Lost or something like some situation like that.
Yeah, just perpetually trying to keep something going, or like other people get production conflicts that screw up the story. There's a couple things that are coming up that I just wanted to flag that are pretty neat. So She and Him announced a new album. It's a Brian Wilson tribute album, which is
that's
pretty cool. Yeah, and they got Brian to feature on it too. I guess he's actually a big fan of She and Him, and they've done some stuff together. And so they were working on one of the songs on the album, and I guess Zoe was just like, well, I can't sing this one. It's just, I can't, it doesn't work for me. Like it has to be on there. But I can't do it. And M. Ward was like, well, I can't do it. And so they reached out to Brian, and he knew about the project, and he's like, all right, I'll do this one with you guys.
I'll do it. Okay. That's cool.
So crazy. So it'll be really cool. That's out in July. That's July 22nd. New Soccer Mommy coming up. Love her. Going to be really cool. There's already a couple songs floating around out there.
Oh, cool. I'll need to listen.
So yeah, she's great. And then Alanis is putting out a new album, but it's not what you think it might be. During COVID, she really got into meditation. You know, she's a big time mom, and she's into like holistic stuff. And so she created a meditation album that's going to be on all DSPs, streaming platforms, whatever, and it's also going to be on the Calm app. I don't know what that's going to sound like. You know, like Alanis can be like really jarring and beautifully like punch you in the gut,
right?
And does not speak meditation to me, but I trust her. Like, she's super insightful and creative, and so I'm sure I'm down to check it out. You know,
and not in a bad way. It's just her. She has one of those voices that cuts through the mix and demands attention. So it just kind of seems like the opposite of meditative to me.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Who knows?
And then we're going to talk Pink Floyd a little bit on the B-side, I think. But it sounds like they're going to be the next one. I know we just heard that Justin Timberlake sold his catalog. We've talked about catalog sales for big bucks, but like, you know, they talked, I think it was Dylan sold his for 300+ million. Springsteen sold his for 500 million. And again, just as a precursor to the B-side, I mean, Pink Floyd, to sell their catalog, they have 2 or 3 of the greatest selling albums of all time.
Yep.
So nothing has been said yet, but there's a lot of speculation. Like apparently they've been having conversations and reached out and are negotiating selling the catalog. And so I'd assume there's quite the bidding war. I also know that those guys don't really get along necessarily. I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Of course. Well, the two of them.
David and Nick, I think, are fine. They just did something for Ukraine, right? But no, Roger, I mean, he's sued them for the use of the name.
Yeah, they don't get along very well at all.
I don't know who's making the money off of that catalog sale. Like, that seems like a legal disaster. So I'm interested to read about it after the fact.
Yeah, after the dust settles.
Yeah, after the dust settles. Want to hit some birthdays and then play a game?
Yeah, we got a few birthdays. and then we'll see if we have time for the game on side A. But June 3rd, 1942, Curtis Mayfield needs no further explanation. Happy birthday to Curtis. I believe we lost him he'd be turning 80, but I think we lost him in 99.
Yeah, something around there.
If memory serves. June 3rd, 1964, Kerry King, guitarist for Slayer. June 3rd, 1965, Mike Gordon, bassist and multi-instrumentalist for Phish.
Man, yeah.
And then
I mean, like, are you a Phish guy? We've talked about this, right?
No, I mean, not really. I was a little bit in high school, but that may have been more like the crowd I was hanging out with. I never went to a Phish show or anything like that, but that's a lifestyle at this point.
It seems like a Phish show is what's supposed to do it. I've been to a few, and I'm going to try again, I think. Like, because I've been in such a live music space, I feel like I need to give it another try. I've seen them 2 or 3 times, and it's never clicked, but maybe this will be it.
Yeah, me personally, I'm just not into the jam band thing anymore.
Yeah.
I was at one point, but yeah, it's just not there for me at this chapter of my life. But who knows what'll end up happening? We go in and out of taste with certain things.
Yeah, I feel like with them, you almost need to do the research and understand what's happening, which I haven't done. So like the recent show, the last show that I went to, they played the song Tweezer like 5 times. And it was different all the time. I didn't know it was the same song 5 times. That's how different it was for me. But like people next to me were bugging out that they kept playing this song Tweezer.
They just kept
and I'm
playing
like, what? And then I looked it up afterwards,
on?
And people had freaked out, and they were like, I can't believe that happened, blah, blah, blah. And it just felt like I didn't have the backstory. Like I missed the first 5 books in a series, and then I came in and I'm like, I don't know any of the characters. I don't know the setting. What does this mean? Like, who are they referring to? What's a tweezer? I don't know. Put it in the freezer. They kept saying, put the tweezer in the freezer. What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of Seussian things going on that go either over my head, or I don't do enough drugs to figure it out. Right. I don't know. There is kind of, you know, you hear people say stuff like, you know, I never understood the Grateful Dead until I saw them live on acid. So I'm not about to I'm not going there. It's just not my thing. Not my thing.
Dig it.
June 3rd, 1968. Samantha Sprackling, the singer of Republica. And I always get confused just kind of with the names and which names belong to which band, but I always get Republica and Elastica confused. Because
it's fair enough.
It's nodding his head in agreement or understanding.
I couldn't tell you. Yeah, I don't know them well enough. So I'm like, if you told me one song's by one or the other, I'd be like, yeah,
okay,
yeah. Right. Yeah.
So because they're both English, that doesn't help. No. They're both kind of were popular in the sort of the same time frame, so that also doesn't help.
Yeah.
Dark-haired female lead singer, that also doesn't help. For both of them. So Republica is best known for "Ready to Go,"
right? Which that's like a huge, like it's an anthem. You know, you'll hear
exactly.
that at sports things or whatever. Yeah.
And then Elastica is best known for "Connection," and I know all of these facts. But still, in my head, the names Republica and Elastica get interchanged all the time.
Right. I feel like we talked about Elastica a while back, and I was like,
not too long ago.
I know this song. Like, it's a hit, but maybe I remember it, but the Republica song is.
Yeah, it was huge.
Like that was like woven into the cultural.
It is.
Landscape.
Yes,
yeah.
It's inescapable now.
Yeah, I feel like saying a FIFA game or something like that. You know.
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely. It's definitely been in an EA Sports game at some point.
Exactly.
100%. And then June 4th, 1954, Jamaican singer producer Mikey Dredd, considered one of the most influential reggae performers and innovators of all time. June 4th, 1956, Reeves Gabrels, American guitarist and songwriter and producer. He was essentially David Bowie's guitar player through like the late 80s through 2000, like through a little bit of an awkward phase where he was kind of, I think that's when he was like touring with Nine Inch Nails and got a little bit more industrial, things like that. Got it. And I didn't know this, but he's been a member of The Cure since 2012.
Oh, that's cool.
Didn't know that. So, relatively influential guitar player. I remember, reading about him in Guitar World magazine as a budding guitar player in the mid 90s. June 5th, 1943, American bass guitarist Michael Davis from the MC5. June 5th, 1946, Freddie Stone, guitar player with Sly and the Family Stone. Nice. June 5th, 1956, Richard Butler, singer of the Psychedelic Furs. And last but not least, June 5th, 1979, Pete Wentz, bass player with the rock band Fall Out Boy.
Awesome.
So happy birthday to everybody.
Yeah, and we lost one of the members of Yes, I think, right? Just recently, I think Alan White, who's the drummer, he was one of the drummers for Yes. I think they had a few, but I think we just lost him.
Really? I might have missed that because
a week or two ago.
Oh no, I missed that.
Yeah, it just happened. Yeah.
Play a game?
Like let's play a game.
Sorry, go ahead. If you had something else you wanted to.
No, I was going to say, I think there was one of the original members for Depeche Mode. There was a weird run. You know how you have like those 2 or 3 names in a row thing, like the bad things always come in threes, but there was like a weird run in the past week or two where it was like a bunch of classic rock artists.
That's right. That was just a few days ago, and I for whatever reason that I neglected to put that into the news.
So
Andy Fletcher.
It just dawned on me, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, Andy Fletcher, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, he died at 60 just a few days ago. Right. Who, from what I understand, was really the sound of Depeche Mode. Like it wouldn't have sounded like Depeche Mode without him. Like he was like the synth master of that band. So rest in peace to Andy Fletcher. And haven't even heard of the Alan White, because they just lost their bass player. Not that was probably been, it's probably been years now, but Alan White. This was just yesterday.
Yeah,
I didn't even see this yet.
Crazy.
Performed with John Lennon. Yeah, 72 years old.
So crazy.
After a brief illness. Man, rest in peace. It's just gonna, like you said, man, it's just going to keep happening with greater and greater frequency. It sucks. Yeah. But it's part of life. My goodness.
So I've got a list.
Okay, cool.
You have a list?
Yes. I was really hoping to have a theme going, but my theme I couldn't find enough content for my specific theme. So it didn't come together. So mine's a little bit more random. But yeah, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So I feel like I do have a theme. I feel like my list is probably going to be pretty easy, but the theme is going to be out of your wheelhouse. So I'm hoping that it throws you a little bit. So we'll see.
Sounds good. And if this is your first time listening, our game is called What's in a Name. We're going to throw 4 names at each other, the birth names or legal names of artists that use a stage name or nickname. Mm-hmm. And we will give hints and guesses as necessary and earn up to 25 points per name, up to 100 points.
Yep.
Let's go.
So the first name is Troyal or Troyal. I'm going to go Troyal, like Royale with cheese. Troyal Brooks.
Troyal Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just off the cuff, there's not anything coming to the forefront of my mind.
I'll say that I didn't give you the middle name on purpose.
Okay,
which
that doesn't help.
be crummy to do.
That's all right. So I definitely am going to need a hint right off the bat here because I've got nothing on this one.
All right. Well, so the hint is that if you had the middle name, you'd have the entire name. Like if I gave you the name, you'd be like, well, I don't even need to guess it because you told me the name.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
if you gave me the middle name.
If I gave you the middle name.
Okay.
Yeah. So Troyell Brooks.
I don't see
Troyell
that.
doesn't like come in at all. Like it's not.
I
in
assumed
there.
as such.
It like I said, it's a genre of music that's probably, I don't think like we have talked much about it. It's not inherently in either of our wheelhouses. You're in Texas, so not to be presumptive, but you probably are exposed to this kind of music more than I am, although I live, in a fairly rural suburban area of New York.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a fair amount of this kind of music that is out in this area as well. But most of it comes from the South.
Dude, I've got absolutely nothing. I'm drawing a total blank.
It's okay.
Give me a second hint.
Yeah, he is. Well, I feel like this is all still the first hint because I haven't really given you much. I'm kind of dancing around it. He's going to be on one of the lists ultimately of the greatest albums sold of all time. Like he's massive, just one of the biggest artists. So like solo singer artists of all time. Wears a cowboy hat.
Brooks. So South.
Wears a cowboy hat.
Right. So between those two, I'm just gonna have to assume that we're talking about country music.
Correct.
So, and with the last name Brooks,
right?
I can't imagine that you would give me Garth Brooks.
It is Garth Brooks.
It is Garth Brooks. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
So is his middle name Garth?
It is.
Oh, yeah. Okay. There we go.
And so what I discovered.
That's okay. We can do those.
Yeah. Well, and so what I discovered in a lot of this is that a lot of country musicians pull their middle names for their stage names or like take a play on that or whatever. So
what is that first name? My goodness.
I don't
Troyell?
know. Yeah.
Troyell?
It's got to be a family thing.
So I'll let you choose if that's going to be 15 points or 20 points.
No, I think that's 20 points.
You gave me a rapid fire micro hint.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a couple
explosion
little
there.
Yeah. I think that's 20 points. So the next one, I'll give you the middle name.
I get the middle name this time.
You'll get the middle name this time. And it is Audrey Faith Perry.
I'm going to just guess that we're sticking with country music. And with the whole middle name thing, that seems to be an overarching theme. I'm going to start off by guessing Faith Hill.
There you go. That's perfect. That's Audrey Perry is Faith Hill.
I can put hints together.
There you go. So you got this. All right. The next one is Samuel Timothy Smith.
Samuel Timothy Smith. So Tim. I'm gonna guess. It's probably not. It'd be too easy, but I'm gonna guess Tim McGraw.
It's Tim McGraw. There you go.
Oh man!
Yeah. See, and they're
just
married.
Follow
right?
the middle name.
That's
I
right.
had no idea that they were married because I don't follow modern country
right.
music. But
right. And that's what I figured. Throw in the country. If we're going to the country space, make it not too crazy. Although I'm going to break with that because this next one, as far as I see it, has no connection to her stage name. So this one's the torpedo.
Okay.
Eileen Regina Edwards. I mean, there's just nothing to work with. I
feel like I've heard that before.
Okay.
Is that Shania Twain?
Oh my God. How did you just do that?
I feel like, okay. because I feel like in doing research for trying to come up with my own list, I've seen that relatively recently.
Wow, dude. That's amazing. I was like, this is the one.
Also because she's Canadian, right? Isn't she Canadian?
She is.
And that just kind of strikes me as a very Canadian sounding name for some reason.
Eileen Regina Edwards.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I knew that from a recent deep dive into some stage names.
I was convinced that one was going to wreck you.
I just remembered that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So nice to know that my COVID brain seems to be gone.
Yeah.
So I can string some things together.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That was a fun one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a few names. I won't say anything up. There is no theme here. One of these we may possibly have done before because I haven't been keeping very good records. So we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah.
First one hopefully is easy mode. And the name is Austin Post.
Austin Post. I'm gonna say is Post Malone.
It is Post Malone.
Okay, cool. All right, sweet.
From what I know, got his stage name from an online Wu-Tang Clan name generator.
No, that's the Childish Gambino story. Did he do?
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. It may or may not be true, but that's what I heard. I wonder how many artists got their name from an...
That's pretty cool.
I don't remember what mine is, but I remember being disappointed with it.
Yeah. I bring it up because I recently just did that in one of our Discords. We were talking about it because we were talking about Childish Gambino, and I did mine, and it was like something Commander or something. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Mine, I don't remember what it was, but it was disappointing. That's all I remember. Okay. So this one was one of the names when I was trying to put a theme together. Mm-hmm. And we'll just start with the name. It's Kenneth Bruce Gorelick or Gorelick. Gorelick.
Gorelick. I think I'm going to need a hint. It's not ringing any bells.
So the name is basically there.
Okay.
And you could also tie in this musician.
Oh, is it Kenny G?
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Cool. Who plays the saxophone. So I was trying to tie in our B-side theme from last week and get like musicians that play, instruments.
I like that. Get an accordion player. Yeah.
Yeah, I really tried.
Bagpiper.
I couldn't get it to work. I couldn't. Yeah. I couldn't. Okay, so this one kind of also stemmed from that, but not quite in the same way. Mm-hmm. And this person is Michael Peter Balzary. Balzary.
Oh, I know this one.
You probably do. Probably. Very well-known musician.
I feel like I've looked this one up recently.
Who also happens to play an instrument that we talked about last episode. Very well, actually, too, surprisingly, like for what he's well known for.
So wait, so he's not known for this instrument, or he is?
Primarily not.
Primarily not. Okay. Michael Balzary. Well, it's not. My mind went to Fat Mike, but that's Mike Burkett. And the reason that I thought that it was being reaffirmed is because there's an accordion, but that's Eric Melvin in NoFX, so it can't be him because Mike doesn't play that anyway.
And I already did Fat Mike in a prior episode.
You did Fat Mike, right.
Michael Peter Balzary.
Michael Peter Balzary. Michael, who are you, Mike? I think I'm going to need a hint.
So he has been in a number of other relatively well-known groups aside from his primary group and where he plays his primary instrument. He has played his, I guess you would call it, secondary instrument for lack of a better word, in some pretty big groups with some pretty big artists.
Really?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Man.
I know we kind of joke about the fact that you're not much of a movie guy, but he's also an actor.
He's an actor. Oh my gosh. So
it is not Jamie Foxx.
Oh.
I feel you're going to kick yourself with this one.
He plays in a bunch of other bands.
He plays in a bunch of other bands.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And plays one of the instruments that we talked about last week very well. But what he's best known for is a traditional rock instrument.
Mike. And there's nothing. Is there? I mean,
Nothing.
I feel like you would have said there was a hint in the name.
There is not a hint of a hint in the name.
Yeah, you're gonna have to notch me some more points.
No problem.
Can't even fathom a guess.
So his name, his stage name, is a single word.
Okay, that helps.
And
he plays a normal rock and roll instrument, and then he plays a non quote unquote rock and roll instrument. Does he play that non rock and roll instrument in his normal band that you said that he plays in?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. He played no.
So there's a chance.
So I want to give you a good enough second hint.
Yeah.
So it's his name, his stage name is a single word.
Mm-hmm.
And this single word name is a member of the animal kingdom.
Oh boy. Thundercat. Thundercat. I feel like I know Thundercat's name, and it's not that, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Is Thundercat a member of the animal kingdom?
Well, I guess,
is that an official guess?
No, that's a good call. There's no such thing as a Thundercat, or is there?
But I will say that Thundercat's primary instrument is the same primary instrument as this fellow.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'm going to listen to some Thundercat later tonight.
Yeah, he's awesome. He and his Pikachu backpack. Okay. Single word. Is it Animal Kingdom? Okay. Is it Flea?
Yes.
Okay.
It is Flea.
What does Flea play? That's not bass.
He is a very accomplished trumpet player.
Shut up.
I'm seeing it's like Google.
What?
Yes,
he plays in other bands.
He played the trumpet in
the trumpet. Flea plays the trumpet. Oh my God! Look, there he is playing the trumpet. Jane's Addiction. Mars Volta. Are you kidding
yes,
me?
She played the trumpet with the Mars Volta.
I love the Mars Volta.
I'm trying to remember what else. I mean, he's been in a ton of groups or played with tons of other groups. I'm trying to definitively find what groups he's played trumpet with.
Oh my gosh, this is crazy.
Yeah, he's gone on record as saying that when he was young, he wanted to be Dizzy Gillespie.
Wow. All right. Yeah. I mean, I had no idea he played the trumpet. That's so interesting. But there's lots of pictures of him playing the trumpet. So that's amazing. Yeah, when I think of him, I have seen him in movies, though, actually. I saw him in, it's like a Charlie Sheen movie. It was him and Anthony Kiedis. It was on TV a bunch. It was like a car chase. The whole movie was one long car chase.
Wait. Are you talking about what was he in? I just saw him in that movie. But it's not Charlie Sheen, is it? He was in This Is Not a Movie podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
It was called The Chase.
He's in that movie?
He is like Charlie Sheen is being pursued by cops, and it's this big like thing. The whole movie is one big car chase. And then
he's
like
in it?
Flea and Anthony Kiedis like see him on TV and they're like, hey, that's in our neighborhood. And they like get in this like old Bronco and chase after him.
That's so funny because the movie that I was thinking of that he is in is Baby Driver, which is a car chase movie.
Oh.
And I also always forget that he's in Back to the Future 2.
Who was he in Back to the Future 2?
I think he was just some punk. Oh man, now I'm gonna like have to look all this up.
This is a movie podcast. Oh yeah, you're right. That's right. I'm looking at a picture of him now. He's in Back to the Future.
He's in Back to the Future 2.
So weird.
So weird.
Wow.
The dude does everything.
Him,
I'm looking at an article. I didn't even know this, but apparently there was a concert that Nirvana and Red Hot Chili Peppers played this, the same, whatever it was, festival or just concert. This took place in Brazil in 93, but Flea came out and played trumpet with Nirvana for a special rendition of Smells Like Teen Spirit.
That's insane. Also, how do you play trumpet with Nirvana?
I don't know, but
wow. Wait, I still have one. You
still got one more. One more.
Oh my gosh! All right.
All right.
Go ahead.
The last one here is, and I was thinking this is hard mode, but we'll see. You might just know it off the cuff.
Boy.
Henry John Deutschendorf.
So
you know this, don't you? Yeah.
I do know this one. Because I have, if you look at my list that I wrote out for tonight, I had 5 names.
Oh, really?
And this is the one I left off.
No way.
It's John Denver.
Yes, it is John Denver. Holy moly.
How crazy would it have been if I had thrown that in there and you're like, oh man, you took my
That would have been our first double, double booking.
It's legitimately in my phone note.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten into the habit of picking an alternate just in case.
Oh boy.
I just figured if it ever happened, I would just frantically Google really quick.
Yeah, you would have just gotten Shania Twain. You would have been like, Dolly Parton. Is that her real name? It is her real name. That's so weird. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So I lost track. I wasn't keeping. So you.
I think it was pretty close. I feel like we could probably call it a tie.
So let's see. You got Post Malone. That's 25 points. You got Kenny G.
I got Kenny G after the first hint.
Okay, so that's 45.
I got Flea. I went pretty deep on Flea.
So probably 15.
Yeah, but I feel like you probably
85?
took it. Yeah, I feel like you probably took it because you cruised. You got hung up on Garth a bit, and then you cruised through everything else. So I feel like it was like a 15, and then
you gave it away with that middle name thing, and then I just happened to remember the Shania Twain thing.
I was sure Shania was going to wreck you. Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna tee him up with these easy ones because we're in a different space, and then wreck you.
It went way back somewhere because it wasn't even that long ago. Like it was either something I was looking at for 2022 or 23.
Okay.
But oh well, that's fun. So I took it this time.
Nice.
Thank you, Shania Twain. You got me there. You got me over
Eileen.
the finish.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eileen.
Thanks, Eileen.
But yeah, we're gonna take a quick break and come back and celebrate our 25th episode by talking about some of our favorite 25 million selling albums. And I've got a few to talk about. Liam's got some to talk about. We haven't discussed this yet as far as what we're gonna touch on, so we might have some crossover. Well, it'll be interesting to see what we've got.
Cool.
All right, we'll see you when we come back. welcome back to Side B of our 25th episode of Retro Groove. We're going to celebrate our 25th episode, which is, again, it's a pretty big milestone, and we're going to look at 25 million plus selling albums that, mean something to us. And we're going to touch on those. We might touch on, some other just massive heavy hitters. But we're looking at these in the context of milestones within the music industry, and what they in the overarching theme of what we try to do on this podcast is how these albums have affected us personally. So. Mm-hmm. I know I've got a few that I want to talk about. Liam, you look like you had one in particular that was extra meaningful.
As I scan through this list, there's a lot of stuff on here that you would expect to be on here. I'm going to start it off by saying that greatest hits albums, kind of cheating, right?
Yes.
One of the greatest selling releases of all time is the Eagles' greatest hits.
Right.
And love them or not, they had a great run of hits, and kind of bridged that folk rock country space really well, so that internationally they do just as well as they do throughout America.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a greatest hits album,
right?
So, kind of
same thing.
Fair.
As much as I love Queen,
mm-hmm.
that greatest hits album being a 25 million plus seller, it's okay, but it's a greatest hits album, you know what I mean? Come on.
We're talking if for the sake of what we're doing here, it's really about what albums have just resonated as a whole, or as a standing piece of work that everybody just collectively tapped in on.
Right.
And the same thing for anything that's a double album. I don't know if you knew this, but when they scan a double album, which I think one of the Led Zeppelin albums is a double album. Is it 4? It might be it might be 4. It's technically scans as two albums.
Really?
Yeah, so there's a Guns N' Roses album on here that I think it's Appetite, that technically scans as a double sale, so it's a little misleading. Yeah, so there's a couple of those there's a couple of on here that I shaved off of my collective look across it. Obviously Thriller is Thriller,
right?
One of the greatest albums of all time, and no one's ever topping that internationally. 60 plus million
that's
copies sold
for a single album,
continues to sell. And I think a lot of these are going to be ones that you still find at Urban Outfitters or Barnes and Noble,
right?
That they reissued it again, and people still pick it up. But there's a couple cool ones on here. Jagged Little Pill, Alanis Morissette, 33 million that's fantastic.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Shania Twain, we talked about. Eileen, 40 million for Come On Over. But it is weird. It's you've got an odd smattering at the top, and we're going to hone in more in that 25 spot because we're celebrating our own milestone. But it is crazy to look like Thriller #1, and then AC/DC's Back in Black, which is the first album with Brian Johnston, so it's not even the
original
Highway to Hell, Bon Scott era of AC/DC, but it was I guess ultimately their main commercial breakthrough of that sound. I own Back in Black, and it's fantastic, so I can't be mad at that. It's odd that it's that album.
It's probably where they broke through internationally, right?
It probably is. Yeah,
that's to my memory what happened there. But and not to double back on this, but you're telling me that when I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that the White Album sold 24 million copies, you're saying they really only sold 12 million copies of that?
Well, is that technically just because it was pressed on 2 discs doesn't mean it's not? It has to be a double album, right?
Oh,
it has to
okay.
be. Yeah. So it's not anything that had 2 discs. It's something that stood alone as two separate albums. So
Okay.
there's certain things that were sold as such.
Okay.
So no, so that one would
Okay,
be.
thank you for clarifying that, because that was, I was like, hold on.
No, it's
Okay.
sales stand on its own. And then you get soundtracks on here. I mean, which again makes sense. The movie becomes massive. The music is synonymous for it. So you see the Grease soundtrack, Saturday Night Fever, The Bodyguard.
Yeah.
Like these soundtracks that just were intrinsically connected with how big those movies were.
Exactly.
And then Meatloaf, but so again, it's like, it's not the same people buying all of these, or maybe it is. Maybe there's somebody who likes Meatloaf, AC/DC, the Eagles, and Michael Jackson. Maybe. I guess I like them all. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so as I scan through here, the album in the sort of 25, this one is she's up around 26 now. That I landed on as I looked through these names that stuck with me is Norah Jones's initial kind of breakout album, Come Away With Me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have any history with this album, or if you remember when Don't Know Why hit.
Mm-hmm. It's huge.
Don't Know Why was such a weird thing in an MTV generation. Why that gelled? Like, I don't know what it was that everybody just collectively, I mean, it was her voice and her writing and the sound. Like, you want to just say it's really good written jazzy pop music, but
I feel like it, at the time when I'm thinking back, it sort of just felt like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
It was like, that was what, like 90.
No, it's 2002.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to say, like, you're right after 9/11. Like, maybe that's part of it, is it's like we needed to breathe something. I don't know.
That puts a completely different perspective on it, but that does make sense. I was more talking a breath of fresh air, like musically speaking. And for some reason in my head, it was like 98, 99 that came out. And I was like, we're kind of trying to get away from like all the like grunge and the new metal and boy bands and bubblegum pop. And I'm just like, everything being shoved in your face. And this is just like, I can just like walk outside of the MTV loudness and just like sit on the porch with a glass of lemonade and watch the sunset with Norah Jones. You know what I mean?
We're all okay with that.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Yeah. But I think you're right. I mean, the boy band thing, Backstreet and NSYNC had petered off like 2000, 2001. It like had hit its stride. And I think maybe we were all looking for something different, or it was just the right thing that hit at the right time. But you have this like amazing woman who idolizes Billie Holiday, and just comes with this sound that, again, like Esperanza Spalding or anybody else, like there's so many other artists that do jazz pop in a smart way, but there was something about her voice. There was something about kind of her mystique. I remember the music video. But I also remember watching it and thinking like, is this, what we went through with Cherry Poppin' Daddies and whatever, where it's just like this like side thing of like, okay, we're going to have a couple little jazzy things come up and then we're right back into the alt whatever. And, like these little bubbles. And then she goes and she wins, album of the year and record of the year and best new artist.
Yeah,
I think like
it was quite a sweep.
Yeah, and at the time, I think she either tied or bested like the woman who won the most Grammys in a single event or something like that. It was such a big moment that made it feel so much more than I originally thought that it was. And then I remember, so anecdotally, going to college, like I had graduated in that year and went to college and got a turntable, or my roommate had a turntable. So there was suddenly a turntable in my life. And I've told the story before. He played the White Album. I'd never heard Piggies before. It bugged me out. Piggies is a weird ass song. And so I went digging around at the Virgin Megastore and Tower Records for stuff that like I could put on there. My roommate was a jazz major. And so I was like, I am in college now. Like I need to be more highbrow and cool.
Yep.
And if I'm going to borrow his turntable, it better be kind of legit. And I remember pulling this record right here. You can't see
it's the very one.
I'm holding it up.
Nice.
Pulling this record from the stacks. And I would fall asleep, and nothing against it, but we would put it on and just chill and pass out to this album. And then I was working in a restaurant to make money during college, and like Lone Star, and there's a bunch of songs on this that were like in the playlist of the restaurant, and it was so perfect. Not to go back to like Dan's Carole King fabric store thing, because I don't want to make light of Nora's sound, but it's perfect for a restaurant. I mean, like, who doesn't want to eat some pasta and listen to like Come Away With Me,
glass of red wine. Yeah, of course.
So good. Yeah, so good. So yeah, this is one of those albums where when I listen to it now, it takes me back. It chills me out. It makes me so relaxed and happy. I love Billie Holiday. I didn't know Billie Holiday until college, until my roommate had her records. And so it is interesting, like, he was introducing me to Billie, and we were listening to Nora, who was influenced by Billie. And it was just things aligned in a certain way there. And I grew to appreciate one through the other unknowingly. But yeah, it's so great. I mean, so she sold 27 million copies. I mean, she sold 50 million albums in her lifetime so far. So which means half of her sales are off of this one album. But has put out a ton of other great albums. I mean, she did she's got all these side projects. She did Puss in Boots, which is her and two other ladies doing country songs. She also had Little Willies, which is like an alt country cover band.
Oh, interesting.
She's got this album. I gotta look it up now. She put out this thing. She was featuring in so many things because she was it.
Yeah, everyone wanted to work with her.
It still is. She was it, man. And like in so many weird pockets where she was on like a Ryan Adams album and a Belle and Sebastian album, and then on Speakerbox and The Love Below, like an Outkast album. She was on Q-Tip's album,
Oh, really?
Like she like popped up everywhere. She was the one where it's just like, let's get her, right? I feel like John Batiste has had that a little bit lately too. Like there's these people who is just like undeniable talent, and I want you on my record because it gives a new texture point. Like there's something different that I can do with my sound. So in like 2010, she released this compilation, and it's just all the things she featured on. It was like 20 different songs across all genres. Yeah, it's a really, really cool album. But it's like, her with Herbie Hancock, her with Talib Kweli, her with the Foo Fighters. Like
that's crazy.
Willie Nelson, like she's worked with everybody. So just again, looking at this, like Norah Jones is badass and is so cool, continues to put out really great music today. And this album is like such an important like body of work from that time that encapsulated whatever was going on in my life was going on in everybody else's life. And I'm just glad it exists. It's like, it's a really cool thing that I still go back to this day.
Awesome, man. Thank you for sharing. I feel like I learned so much just like in these last 5-10 minutes. Awesome. So
now let's talk about Backstreet Boys Millennium. No, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I was going to take that because you'd already mentioned the Fabric Store music. So I was going to use that to segue into Carole King.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, it's we talked about Carole when she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame last year. And, you know, we've talked a lot about just how iconic and influential this album was. It's still to this day an album that I go back to and am just floored. It's almost like it's so good, and then you kind of go about your life and you kind of forget, and then when you come back to it, you're floored all over again. And there's not a whole lot of albums that do that for me, but this is definitely one of them where if, you know, I'll go months without listening to it, and then I come back and I'm just like, oh, this is literally one of the greatest songwriters of all time. And I almost feel like I was actually honestly kind of surprised that it's only sitting at 25 million. Because I feel like with Norah Jones' 27 million is absolutely, you know, deserved. Right. But for Carole, for this album to come out in the 70s and be as influential as it was and still is, for it to only be sitting at 25 million, I feel like it should be higher up on the list. But
so there's a weird bubble effect that is happening in this data that has to kind of be factored in, I think, a little bit. Like when you think about how accessible music is or was over the years, right? If you are talking back when this album came out, which was 71, 72, like people were buying vinyl, but you weren't buying a ton of vinyl. Right. I think a lot of people then exchanged this. I think this is an album that you can find used for maybe 10 or 15 bucks still. But it's not it's not in that reissue cycle that you just see all the time on all the shelves constantly. And it also never got, to my knowledge, that CD bubble, man. Like CD sales in the 90s into the early 2000s is the reason why Eminem's Marshall Mathers and Eminem Show is so high up here. Nothing against Eminem. It's the reason why Backstreet Boys are so high on this list. Like, people had consumable income, and CD costs, again, for us as kids,
it was
like
cheaper,
13, 14 bucks or whatever.
Yep.
But like, you were paying more than that in vinyl 30 years before that. So now at this point, CD sales were like a lot easier. People were,
you could buy 2.5 CDs for the price of one LP.
Yeah, you weren't buying records at Walmart back in the day. You didn't have a Target. You had to go to a record store. Yeah. And so or the Columbia Records Club or whatever, but it was such a thing when we were growing up that music was so easily purchasable and consumable. And I don't think Carole King had a moment in that era. I feel like her time, it's come back around recently with the success of the Broadway musical and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction and people pointing to her as that influential artist. But I don't think sales wise it registered in the way that some of these other artists do. So when we look at this data, it's a little skewed towards artists who were selling a product at a certain time.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I wonder also if it comes down to, whoever owns the music or owned it at that time, making the decision for one reason or another not to push a CD reissue or a remaster of some kind. So I can see that playing a major factor in the overall lifetime album sales, because you know, you don't see a ton of Carole King CDs around. You know, it's just not something that I remember being, because when CDs came out, there was a lot of remasters and, you know, digital remaster of this classic album.
Let's resell it.
Yeah, exactly. Just double dipping. And I don't really, like, my parents had the Carole King 2 of her albums on vinyl. And I remember when CDs got a lot more accessible and you could buy a portable CD player relatively cheaply. You know, we had a CD boombox in the kitchen and then one in the living room. It was like when it became easily accessible, my parents had a bunch of the CDs of albums that they already had, like, in the basement at this point. You know what I mean?
Right.
And Carole King was not one of them.
Right.
So it must not have been that kind of thing that ended up getting, either wasn't like remastered and had a big push behind it, or it came too late, or I don't know. But those are some good points, and definitely something to keep in mind here. And you're right, because like even looking at like Adele, like 25, that album came out in 2015, right?
Yeah.
23 million albums sold.
Yeah, and there is a way that they count a certain number of streams. If a album gets streamed
That's another
a couple
thing.
hundred times, then it technically counts as a sale. You know, like there's a correlation there, or there's a metric there. But again, like I don't know how that actually factors into usage. You know, so it is very impressive to see Carole on here, because when you look at a lot of these top line artists, their 80s and 90s releases that
a lot of them
probably benefited from an 80s initial release on vinyl and even cassette after that, and then a reissue like 10 to 15 years later on CD. Carole's one of the only ones on here that I'm seeing through this. I mean, like, everything else, it's crazy how high Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits are, man. That's 30 million sales for the Dire Straits. Australia just loves that band. 1.2 million sold in Australia alone. That's so weird,
man. That's because because Australia is not as populous as people think it is.
Yeah. Dude, 1.1 million sold in Canada for that album too, man.
Wow.
Dire Straits.
Dire Straits are amazing.
Yeah.
So kind of in that same vein, we have an album that was very influential for me growing up, made a big impression on me early on. I still remember the moment I heard it for the first time and turned me into a lifelong rock and roll fan. But talking about Boston.
Yeah.
The self-titled album by Boston came out in 1976. My dad had the record, which I heard around the house here and there. But something clicked when I had a little R2D2 shaped portable tape player.
Oh man,
it's like a Walkman, but it was just shaped like a kind of a more rectangular version of R2D2. And I would take that in the car when we, had any kind of road trip. Anything closer or further away than just, going to, the adjacent town for one reason or another. And one day I was kind of bored with whatever I had lying around, and I grabbed one of my dad's tapes, and it was Boston. And something about having it like in headphones and that just searing saw blade guitar coming in was like, just blew my 9 or 10 year old mind.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was a rock and roll fan ever since. So that's obviously a huge record. 25 million albums sold, and it's kind of obvious to see why that was sort of a not necessarily a unique take necessarily, but they just kind of had somewhat of a unique sound, and I think it came out at a time where it was just a little bit edgy enough, but still very just kind of safe sounding.
Mm-hmm. So it was very popular prog music.
Yes.
Like it's prog for dummies, really. It's like you could but it's so intricate and smart, and it's easily listenable, but there's so many layers to it that you could fall into if you want to.
And catchy too. Yeah. So, but yeah, overall safe. And so I think that, whether it was intentional or it just happened to be what it was, that appealed to such a wide array of people. Mm-hmm. And, the songs, a lot of the songs are absolutely iconic to this day. You'll hear them in movies, and, it gives them a fresh voice kind of. Yeah. But yeah, I'll still go back and put on the first Boston album. I have 2 or 3 others, but I don't really typically go back and listen to those. Mm-hmm. Someone could pull the other Boston albums out of my collection, and I probably wouldn't even notice ever. Yeah. That's just that first one. That's the only one I really listen to. That's the only one I have an attachment to.
They had a weird run because there was a space between, and I think there was a second one that came out pretty quickly after it, but then it wasn't. You had some of these bands that just got prolific around that time, right? Yep. We're putting things out every year, every other year, whatever. And Boston, it wasn't like that. The cadence fell off. I remember reading about this a while back where it was just it took 6 or 7 years or something like that between albums. And when that happens, things change, people do side projects, tastes change, momentum changes. And so what was big in the mid 70s, now once you're talking about the late 80s,
things change so quickly.
Yeah.
They never seemed to. They didn't do the ZZ Top thing. They didn't. Mm-mm. They didn't make the transition as accessible and popular as they were. They never quite made the transition into, what things started to sound like as pop music in going into the mid 80s.
Yeah.
So it's a really important and impactful album for me, just as a music fan and as a musician. But you could sort of call it a flash in the pan in the grand scheme of things. But 25 million albums, well deserved, at least in my opinion. And I guess technically in the opinion of 25 million other people. So there it is.
Yeah, it's a lot of prog on this list too, and mainly by Pink Floyd, which we shouldn't wrap before talking about a little bit.
No, we can go.
There's a lot of Pink Floyd albums on this list, which for a band that had radio play, I'm not saying that this band didn't get the support in radio. They have staples that live forever, but they're not necessarily a radio band. Dark Side of the Moon has cuts on it. I think there's 10 tracks on it, and maybe 6 or 7 of them are proper songs. Some of them are 7 minutes long. But then there's weird interlude things and vocal stuff. It's not just straight ahead. You look at Thriller or Bad, where it's just stacked. Dude,
right.
That is a stacked album. The Meatloaf album.
It's not a pop album.
No, it's an experiential
They're not a pop
album.
Group. Exactly.
All of them are experiential things. And so I look at
which is why you only ever really hear Wish You Were Here or Money on the radio. Those are the more radio friendly ones.
Yeah. But there's a lot. I think there's 3 Pink Floyd albums in this top 25 and up realm. That's crazy.
It's pretty wild to think that having such cerebral, for lack of a better word, experiential, like you said, concept albums, you wouldn't expect them to be this popular. Like the era, sure, plenty of concept albums. Prog rock was very popular. Psychedelic influences everywhere. But yeah, it's you would expect it to be popular, but 23 million albums here, 24 million albums there. It's like it's mind-boggling how many albums they've sold total. It's nuts.
Yeah, they don't feel. I when we were talking about Queen before, right, and their greatest hits, and when you look at the collection of the Queen, I mean, I think there's a 2-part thing. There's greatest hits 1 and 2. There's so many of them, right?
Yeah.
But those are spread out across a dozen plus albums. I would say that there's probably like 15 or 16 Queen albums, and each one has 1 or 2 massive hits on it. Whereas Pink Floyd, I mean, they've got, I think there's 7 albums or something like that, 7 or 8 albums, but like, it's you don't have that cadence there.
Right.
Each one is its own experience. And so for that to have resonated in a way that boosted each of these releases to have millions and millions sold, and then you look at Queen and their greatest hits sold a ton, but each individual album is only a couple million. It's like they don't have a single album that's over like I think 5 or 6 million or something like that. So that's kind of crazy to me. It's like it speaks to what Pink Floyd was able to kind of tap into that wasn't pop music. It was a vibe.
Yes.
Maybe it's just that much stoner drug use across but like, and how many times can you repackage Dark Side of the Moon?
True. True.
But it's a great album. Like I put it on the other day just because I was kind of like thinking about this list, and I was like, yeah, this is still really good.
Yeah,
like,
and looking at it, I was, for some reason in my mind, I was thinking it was 23 million for The Wall, but it's actually 33 million for The Wall.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, obviously Dark Side of the Moon is one of the greatest albums of all time. 50 million albums is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. I still would probably put on Wish You Were Here before any of the others. I love these albums. I'm a huge fan of Dark Side of the Moon. That's the Pink Floyd album that I heard before anything else. But Wish You Were Here just hits different for me for some reason. And that's the one at the 25 million mark. I couldn't even really put my finger on what it is. So since we're talking about it, have you done it's such a dumb cliche thing to talk about at this point, but have you done the Wizard of Oz thing where you sync up?
This is not a movie podcast.
It is not a movie podcast.
Today it is.
But
yeah, no, I have not.
Haven't.
I don't know what it does.
It doesn't do much.
Okay.
I have done it a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some interesting moments where it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Is
it intentional though, or is it just something that like people figured out?
I feel like if it was intentional, it would have been more of an experience. Like there would have been more there than just like 10 minutes go by and like, oh, that happens to line up kind of. You know what I mean? So I feel like if it was intentional, it would have been it would have felt a lot more of an ongoing experience kind of thing. But I don't know. Somebody at some point that was, on some psychedelic substance of some kind.
See, I feel like
got the idea and just went with it.
When I heard about it, I seemed to remember like there was a thing that one of the band members had said, which was just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
like, there was something about it where it was just like, no, this is nothing. No. And And so when I went into my experience with this, I never did it, A, because I don't own the Wizard of Oz on any kind of medium, and B, because I was just like, well, if the artist didn't intend this, then this is really just like some weirdo was like, wouldn't it be crazy if
but this was before the internet where you couldn't verify these things with Google.
Right.
You just had to just
trust some schmuck on the playground.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, is Billy in my Spanish class telling the truth? Yeah. Like you had to just believe it until proven otherwise.
Right.
But and it's funny too because they're associated with that kind of drug culture to a certain extent, but they're on record as saying like, we don't do drugs. Like how could we couldn't play our instruments, like, you know what I mean? So who knows? It is sometimes sad to me that ends up being so ingrained in the music culture, because it's not my scene and I'm not judging anybody that is their scene, but it just enjoy the music is a trip enough. Trust me. Like it's like you can sit in a dark room with a vinyl copy and go on a psychedelic adventure without any kind of substances. Trust me.
I also feel like I've definitely done the thing before. I can't think of a specific instance, but like I'm cleaning up around the house. I've left the TV on for whatever reason, but it's muted and I have music playing, and I'll watch something on TV and it'll sync up in a weird way with like a Bounty paper towel ad. And I'm like, whoa. But it's just stupid. Like your brain just happens things together.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, your brain looks for patterns, right? Your brain wants to find patterns.
Exactly.
So oftentimes it'll find it when it's not there. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'll be listening to a song in the car and I'll notice like, whoa, the turning signal of that car over there is exactly syncing up with the beat. And I'll watch it and I'll see if it keeps going. And sometimes it falls out of sync, but sometimes you're sitting there for a full minute and a half. And that turn signal is just absolutely lined up with the BPM of the song that you're listening to. And it's crazy when it happens. And it feels almost like, is this a sign? Like, wait, am I supposed to go that way and follow that vehicle? Like, what is going on here? Yeah. So could be anything. Who knows?
Well, you should go listen to Dark Side of the Moon regardless. It's a great album.
Yeah. I don't know who hasn't at this point, but
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
If you haven't for some reason, highly recommend it.
Go get weird. Yeah.
But listen to the whole thing. That's the thing. You can't just flip around with an album like that.
Yeah, if you just go to Time and you just get a bunch of clocks screaming in your face, you're going to be like, what's even happening here? I don't know. What is this? Yeah.
I mean, you'll probably get that either way.
Yeah, but at least you get like softened into it a little bit. Like you've already been warmed up and then suddenly it hits you. Yeah.
But that I think that's one of the reasons why I love Pink Floyd so much is because I personally just love the entire album as an experience, as a complete artist's vision, and they just nailed that. And it's like, is this a song? Is this just like a segue piece? This track sounds like all one song, but it's 5 different parts and they all roughly sound the same, but they all flow into each other. It's just a different kind of experience than like 3-minute song, dead air, 3-minute song, dead air, 3-minute song. It's just a completely different experience, and I personally love it. So highly recommend it either for a night drive or, sitting in a dark room by yourself or a trusted friend and have a trip, take a trip.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like, congrats to all of these artists for their amazing milestones, and congratulations to us for a 25 episode milestone as well. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, man. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on? I feel like we hit all the big ones on here. I mean, there's tons of albums on this list, but
yeah, we could go on forever. But I know. I looking at the milestone albums here, I know that I hit the ones that really resonate with me and that I wanted to talk about. Yeah. As far as our 25th episode goes, I will say we're me and Liam have talked about this. So I'm not surprising anybody. I'm not surprising Liam with this, but the show is going to take a little break, a short hiatus for the summer, maybe not the whole summer, but we just want to, number one, make sure that we are doing something with a purpose and doing something that's going to remain fresh. And sometimes that requires taking a little bit of a step back creatively, looking at the big picture and really trying to hone in on what it is that we want to do. Yeah. And there's probably some things that we're going to cut out, maybe some things that we'll add. But I do know that for a variety of reasons, kids being out for the summer for one of them, lots of traveling on the horizon, still not being 100% after my second bout with COVID here. Yeah. As you can hear, it's just time for a little bit of a break. I have mixed feelings about it, but I do feel like it's probably necessary for us at this point. Yeah. But as far as our listeners are concerned, again, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, we appreciate you so much, and I hope that you stick with us through the break. And I think that it's going to be for the best. I think it's going to be a good time of rest, reflection, and hopefully a revitalization and a realization of what we really want to do with the podcast, which is, focus on not only the albums and artists that stand the test of time, but the ones that really resonate with us and hopefully resonate with you as a listener. So that's where I'm at with it. Liam, anything that you want to say?
No, it's all good by me, man. I'm excited that we get to do this.
Yeah, I know that I got to get back to some live shows. Like I still got that Weird Al concert coming up in October, but if I can find something that is really going to be an event. Summer is it depends. It's
a little hot.
Summer in Texas to go to an outdoor venue with, a few thousand other hot, sweaty bodies is probably not what I would like to do. Turning 40 this summer. So true. But it's gonna be a good summer, and I hope it is for you as well. And thank you, Liam, for coming on this adventure with me and sticking it out when sometimes we didn't know what the next episode was going to look like, or sometimes we had too many ideas and we had to hone it down. But you're an awesome partner in crime, and I appreciate you and everything that you do for the podcast. And thank you, listener, for listening to the show. We are part of the Retrologic Network. You can find us on Discord on the Retrologic server, and you can chat with us on Twitter at retrogroove_pod. Thanks for listening, and we will see you hopefully later this summer or early fall. Adios.